Well, we're back at Besthorpe for an evening's moth trapping, or at least a couple of hours. It's March the 20th today, and I've never trapped this time of year anywhere in the Trent Valley, so this will be something very new. It'll probably mean fewer moths, but we could get something interesting. There is a species which I would love to turn up. More about that later. It's doubtful whether it will. The last record here was 2007. But it's a nice evening. The temperature's going to drop, although cloud amount seems to be quite variable at the moment. It is slowly increasing, but I'm just looking for somewhere sheltered. Now it could be here in the car park or somewhere back along the access track to this car park. I'm undecided yet, but I think we may well trap just here. But this is the habitat. It's very open. There's lots of mature hedgerows, and within those hedgerows quite a lot of willows and sallows and other trees as well. So hopefully we may well get something quite interesting, but we shall see. All will be revealed in the next couple of hours here at Besthorpe Nature Reserve. Well, we're all set up. Just got to fire the generator up in about 10 minutes or so. It's just coming up to 18:30, which is 6:30 in old money, but just a case of waiting for it to get dark or darker. The temperature's going to drop quite quickly because the cloud that we did have seems to be just breaking up and dissipating. A warmer night is forecasted for tomorrow night. But we'll give it a couple of hours here, and hopefully we'll get a few species and an idea of just what flies here in spring. We may well come back in a week or so's time on a different kind of night, a cloudy night, if we ever get one. It seems to be such a long time since we've had a cloudy night. So I've got the place to myself now. It's just a waiting game. Well, the generator's just been switched on, the light's warming up. It'll suddenly brighten noticeably in a minute or so. It takes a while to reach full power. That's why you have that choke, or what they sometimes call a ballast, and that's purely to regulate the amount of electricity current going to the bulb. And these bulbs get absolutely red hot, so never touch the bulb or the cover, and don't look at the bulb either. Learn to look around the bulb when you're looking for moths coming in. So we'll see what Besthorpe can offer us on what will probably drop a quite cool evening, even within the couple of hours that I'm here. And there you can see the whole bulb suddenly brightening. Let's hope it attracts something in. Well, it might look like a beautiful summer's evening, judging by the sky behind me, and as you can tell, it's nowhere near any dark yet at all. We may well not catch many moths. I presume we'll catch at least one. That's what I'm hoping for anyway, but I'm hoping for a few more than one, to be honest. But in a way, I'm testing this kind of habitat early in the year. I'm going very much against the grain as to what I've always told people not to do, and that's to trap at home earlier in the year, unless you live very close to deciduous woodland, or if you're out somewhere very open like this. Although there are woodlands nearby and lots of old hedgerows, it is possible that this place doesn't come alive in terms of moths until another couple of months or so, once we get into June. But then we know that it does come alive. If we don't catch a moth, or many moths, then all you'll be looking at is a video of a picnic of me having a cup of tea on a night time in the middle of nowhere. So let's hope for a moth or two. Well, I don't know whether you'll see this or not, or what will happen. Jupiter should be at the top of the screen, and presuming that this is in focus, you may just be able to make out the space station just below right of centre. It will cross the centre and it will brighten too. It's going to be a really good pass. There's a bit of hazy high cirrus cloud there and it's brightening. This may well go very close to Jupiter. I always love to see the space station. Still get a thrill from knowing when it's coming, looking for when it's first going to appear about 10 or 11 degrees above the horizon and continuing across the sky. And this is a very high pass, almost overhead from London by all accounts, but that's going to go very close to Jupiter. And there you can see the space station pulling away from Jupiter. It looks quite good on the phone, but in practice it might be incredibly grainy and you can hardly make anything out. But that is a very high pass. Well, 40 minutes into this session, it's now 19:20, and we have had 3 moths. The first moth that came in was an Agonopteryx, and presumably Agonopteryx heracleana. I will put a photo in because, quite frankly, it's hardly worth looking at. And then we had very briefly a small quaker, and a common quaker has just dropped in too. Hopefully this may not be too bad a session after all, but say I'm not expecting a lot, so to be honest, any number of moths is a bonus tonight. So we'll see what else we can get. It may well be more of the orthosias like clouded drab, more common quaker, maybe twin spotted quaker, but we'll have to see. Well, I thought I'd best show you at least one moth, and I think there's 2 of these in the light now somewhere. This one's settled down nicely, and this is a common quaker, one of the commonest moths of early spring that you'll catch, and this will turn up in your garden trap if you do trap in your garden at this time of year. In terms of coloration, usually various shades of chestnut brown to the ground colour of the forewings, and the only really distinguishing marks is that sort of darker dusty line across both the wings there, but also the kidney mark and the oval mark. They can be quite distinctly outlined in pure white. You can just make them out on this specimen, but some are really quite nicely and strongly marked. But not the most exciting of moths, but a moth is a moth. At the beginning of this video I mentioned the possibility of something really rare, or something that I would like to attract or even catch, something that is incredibly unlikely. It still is unlikely. I haven't caught one, but the moth in question was a small egger. The small egger in many counties in the UK has declined enormously. It's never been widespread in Nottinghamshire and has always been confined to this sort of area of the Trent Valley. There's a number of records from Sutton-on-Trent, which is just across the river pretty much from here, and there was a number of records from there in the early 2000s, and then it disappeared for a number of years. But there was a record here in 2007 of a larval web, Otherwise, it's since the 2010s and right through to 2023 that the moth has been recorded, but always from the Sutton-on-Trent and Besthorpe area along Ingram's Lane, and always in terms of larval webs. There is a record from Misterton Soss, and that was of a single individual attracted to light. Flies earlier in the year, I would like to think that maybe one or two are flying around, although I do go and look for the larval webs at Sutton-on-Trent each year. I didn't find any last year, and I found no sign. Whether I was too late or too early, I don't know. So if one of those was to come in, I would be ecstatic. However, I'm already ecstatic because something which I'd forgotten about has come in, and it's probably the most spectacular moth that I could show you once it settles down. And here is that moth. There may well be, if I decide to plonk it at the end of this video, an outtake, and the outtake will contain swearing. I'll forewarn you now, but in the meantime you'll have to make do gawping at this unattractive moth, this dull brown job. I couldn't believe it when I looked at the other side of the sheet, and there was this female emperor moth. Never saw it come in. I was just doing a piece to camera, and I looked over there and I couldn't believe my eyes. I've attracted male emperor moth to both females and to a pheromone lure, but I've never had one come to light before. And this species is known from Besthorpe and many other sites in the Trent Valley now. I can't believe it. On what I thought would be the most unpromising night, and I wasn't expecting much, then this comes along. Talk about the joys of a hobby and the rewards for many hours spent out in the field, and I never dreamt that I would be talking about this beautiful moth. It's our only silk moth that we have in the UK, and what a stunner it is. And I think this has been out for a day or two, because looking at the abdomen of this female, it doesn't look full of eggs, and there is some damage to the forewing there. You can't see it very well here, but there is a little bit of a chunk taken out of it. But what more could you wish for in a moth? And of course those two fabulous eye spots too. Am I glad that I'd forgot that there was a chance of this moth turning up? I thought it might still be a little bit too early, but it appears not. What a stunning moth. And a moth which is very much a success story, at least in Nottinghamshire, and I think in many other counties, but in Nottinghamshire it's spread up north through the Trent Valley. Historically, it was a species found in Sherwood Forest on the heathlands. It died out there for some reason, and then appeared a number of years ago in South Nottinghamshire, and has gone right up through the Trent Valley. I'm so glad it has too. What a moth. And here's a nice thing too. This is an early grey. It came in from along the hedge line. The larva feeds on honeysuckle, and I know that there is honeysuckle fairly close by, but a beautifully marked species. Not the most attractive, it's not colourful, but very nicely and quite intricately marked. This is a species which will turn up in urban gardens, especially as honeysuckle or various varieties and species of honeysuckle are so commonly planted. So it's a nice one to get here. I'm very pleased with how this session is turning out. Well, despite the temperature now dropping to 7 degrees centigrade, moths are continuing to come in, and it's mostly this species, clouded drab, but amongst others are Hebrew character and a red chestnut has also just come in too. Clouded drabs here are larger than common Quaker and darker too. They do tend to live up to their drab name, but they can be quite variable and some can be quite attractively marked. But there's little in the way of markings on the forewings. You can often just make out a kidney mark and an oval mark, and that's about it. But say several of these in, boosting the numbers, but it's not going to take me much or long to count tonight's catch. Been interesting this evening that all of the moths have come in pretty much from my left, which is sort of northeast. Whether they've been flying down the hedge that runs alongside the access track here, or they've just been flying into the light breeze which is coming from the south or southeast. But despite the lowering temperature, I've got yet another goodie. It's a goodie that we saw for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Amazingly, I've got another dotted chestnut, Nottinghamshire's 7th, unless somebody's had one in the last few weeks, and I couldn't believe it. I knew pretty much what it was straight away, because if you ever get one of these in, you'll think you're in autumn, because the orange coloration of it looks very much like one of the sallows coming in. We'll see, give it a bit longer just to settle down, but I can't believe it. I've hardly got 20 moths or so in total of now 11 species. Emperor moth is one of those 11, and dotted chestnut is another. I never dreamt that I'd get these or anything like this tonight. I was hoping that maybe something different, but it just goes to show what's about. And I don't think that Besthorpe has been recorded well or very much early in the year. It's usually been when there's a lot more moths, from sort of May and June. But it's well worth, if you live in the Trent Valley, it's well worth you getting down to a local patch or a local site and trying your luck. Anything could turn up. What a hobby. And here's a glimpse of that dotted chestnut. They really are very different looking. When you see these come to the light, you'll know instantly that it's something different. What a moth. I couldn't believe it when I trapped that one the other week, and I can't believe that I'm looking at a second. This is obviously a moth which is doing well, or starting to do really well, now that it's in Nottinghamshire again. What a fabulous moth. Well, 2 hours of the session are up, and I'm just about to start and pack away. You may think, well, why pack when you've had a decent session? I've only actually had 10 species and 27 moths of those 10 species. But the temperature is now 6 degrees centigrade, and usually when your temperature is below 8, not much comes in, but there are quite a few moths coming in, and my packing up will be slow. But when you think that of those 27 moths of 10 species, there's been a dotted chestnut, and there's been this magnificent female emperor moth. What a thing. And looking at her abdomen here, I think she's spent now and has laid all her eggs. which is a good thing. It means that next year there will be more of these wonderful moths about. But what a session it's been, absolutely fantastic. I was hoping for something rare, but the rarity when it came wasn't the rarity I was hoping for. And that's moth trapping to me. It's more hoping for species rather than expecting. So there's a number of moths now buzzing around the sheet again. I'm going to have a steady pack up and then head for home.